think it was April 2015.
Okay.
I think started the very first promotion I fought for as an amateur, the one that I got knocked out in. I fought for them to make my pro debut.
Nice.
It's Black Gold Promotions. I don't think they really put on any shows, but it was in Hays, Kansas again.
So that was essentially 5 years after you started.
Yeah.
Almost 6 years of going pro. You get this fight for the same promotion that you made your amateur debut in, and how'd it go?
I knocked the guy out in 9 seconds. So.
Nice, damn.
Yeah, right. The first one I got knocked out in 16, and this one it was 9 seconds. Me
Paying it
knocking the other
back.
guy. Yeah, right. It's kind of funny how it worked out.
So how did what are you thinking right after that? Like, you made this decision to go pro and get a big payoff real quick, 9 seconds.
Man, I thought I was gonna be get calls left and right, like, oh, come fight for this promotion, and I realized, like, slowly it was like, I was trying to get all these fights and stuff, and they were just all falling through, and like, I think that's where I really realized, like, it's a business too.
This is The Prize Fighting Business. I'm your host, Daniel Caycedo, and today my interview guest is professional mixed martial artist, Rakan Adwan. Rakan is a prize fighter that trains with the Genesis Fight Team in Arvada, Colorado, and he's currently preparing for the headliner main event fight at Colorado Combat Club 5 taking place in Pueblo, Colorado on February 29th, where he'll take on Pariah MMA's Zac Riley. Rakan stopped by the studio to have a conversation with me ahead of that fight about his mixed martial arts journey up to this point and how he balances a professional pursuit of fighting with a full-time academic schedule as a college student. So let's dive into my conversation with Rakan Adwan. All right, Rakan, well, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Yeah.
So your next fight is coming up here. It's going to be your 12th pro fight, right?
13th, actually.
13th.
Yeah, one of the ones on my record. The commission misspelled my name or something.
Okay.
So it didn't really get put down there.
Sure. So 13th fight, and it's going to be February 29th at Colorado Combat Club 5, and you're the headliner. You're the main event.
Am I?
I think so.
I didn't know that. That's awesome. Great.
Against Zac Riley?
Yeah.
Cool. So what do you know about your opponent?
I've known of him for a little while. I've seen some of his stuff for LFA. I didn't get to watch his fight against Boston, but I know Boston was definitely tough, but I heard, he just outworked him, really. So, like, I think it's going to be a good one. I think we match up really well, and it's going to make for an exciting one for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is going to be at 130 pounds, you said, a catchweight bout?
Yeah. I've been fighting at 125 for a few years now, and I think he's trying to make the drop a little bit. So.
I see. Cool. What does that weight cut look like for you? I mean, how much do you normally walk around at?
Maybe 145. At my heaviest, I'm getting like 150. Like
that's a significant cut still.
I
25 pounds.
Eat pretty clean, and that's at my heaviest. Though I really usually do a pretty good job of eating clean. Definitely for this one, I've been trying to eat a little bit more though.
Yeah.
For all the extra work and try to stay a little bit heavier since I'm not going to be cutting that extra 5 pounds. But
yeah. But, I mean, something you mentioned off camera is you are balancing this with school and work as well.
Yeah. I'm currently at Pima Medical Institute in their physical therapist assistant program.
Nice.
And it's been pretty intense. Like, there's people with 4-year degrees that aren't making the cut, and I'm in my 4th semester now. Just started 4th semester, and I got one more to go after this. Will be done in August.
Very nice.
And so, yeah, it's been really intense. Been a lot of just a balancing act between that and finances and training and, making extra time to study. And, the human body is a pretty complex thing. Like,
it is.
So, trying to be educated in anything involving that, it takes a lot.
Oh, yeah. And not only balancing that time and schedule and finances, like you mentioned, but also the energy. I mean, it takes energy to study and focus,
sure.
but also you need that for fighting.
Yeah. You got to really be honest with yourself some days. If, are you just like mentally, you just don't want to go do something, like don't want to do that extra studying or don't want to get that extra training session, or you really do need to like relax and let your whole body and mind rest. So
right.
It's been such a like trial and error thing.
This episode is brought to you by 5280 Wealth Management and their financial coaching program. For just $249 a month, you can add your own financial coach and advisor to your team. A financial coach at 5280 Wealth Management can help you analyze your cash flow, create a budget, a savings plan, and invest your money to reach your wealth building goals. 5280 Wealth Management assists you in aligning your values with your goals and then building a plan to achieve them. So take control of your finances and your future with 5280 Wealth Management. Visit 5280wealthmanagement.com/financial coaching to learn more and use code TPFB at checkout for 10% off your first month service. Yeah, and
But
you mentioned it's been a tough year, coming off 2 losses going into this fight, but before that you had won a couple in a row as well. So, I mean, what does the balance look like right now? What is fight camp balanced with school, balanced with work? How does that fit in?
so I work at that coffee shop in Old Town Arvada, 100 Bay Coffee Roasters.
Shout
It's an
out.
awesome place. Come by, come check us out. Learning how to make latte art and stuff.
Ooh.
So yeah, I'm only working there like once a week now that I'm in camp, but I was 2 days a week. They've been pretty flexible with my schedule, and like I said, there's some athletes there so they understand kind of what I'm going through and what's going on.
Right.
So get up early and try to get some studying now, and then pro practice around 11 to noon. And then I got to eat really quick and head to the school. I'm at school from 1 to 5, and then I'm right back at the gym after that for a couple more hours. And then it's home, grab some food, study, and then go to bed and do it all over again, really.
Busy schedule.
Yeah, and then I got to find time for like volunteer hours too for school and everything. And, so it's just been a balancing act trying to figure out where to, I guess, just time management,
Yeah. Good skill to have, though.
Yeah,
Good skill to develop.
and knowing exactly what I need for my training. Like, I feel like my last 2 camps, I've focused a little too much on the strength and conditioning, maybe, and I think it showed a little bit for sure. I just didn't feel like I was really there I didn't have a lot really on my last one. It was pretty quick, but it's just learning experience. So I think I got a good. I think I got it balanced pretty well now. And now it's only like 2 classes that we have. I mean, it's still pretty intense because there's like a didactic portion of it that's a lot of book work, and then you got to be able to apply it for our competencies and testing and stuff like that.
Yeah. Interesting. So. Is that Monday through Friday? You have school working?
Technically, it's only
training?
Monday through Thursday,
Okay.
but we have like open lab on Fridays, which you really kind of have to show up and practice on the skill-based stuff with that.
If you plan to succeed, at
Yeah,
the very least.
yeah, for sure.
What about training? Is that Monday through Friday, or?
Yeah, and I try to get some stuff on Saturdays and Sundays too. I just kind of, if I wake up and my body's still, feels like it really needs some extra sleep and just to relax a little bit, I might take one of those days off.
Yeah.
Sundays is usually just like an hour of jiu-jitsu.
Cool.
But that's about it. But yeah, so I just kind of play that by ear. If maybe I've had to take a few extra hours to study during the week, then I can make that up on the weekends now.
Sure.
So it's nice having somewhere to go 7 days a week.
Yeah. So who's your head coach right now?
Jake.
Okay.
Jake Ramos, yeah.
Jake Ramos, and you're about, so February 29th is the fight. You're about 6 weeks out right now in today's interview. This will probably drop a little closer to your fight. So 6 weeks out, have you started kind of ramping up your intensity as far as fight camp's concerned?
Yeah. I'm starting to really like get into the strength and conditioning a little bit harder. Getting some harder rounds and more rounds, live rounds. I feel like I'm really starting to balance it out, and so just kind of now that I have everything in place, just picking up the intensity a little bit in all of them. Maybe if there's some other guys that don't have fights, then I'll have fresh bodies rotating in on me for wrestling rounds or whatever. So
nice.
Yeah.
And you have a wrestling background as well, but the training that you do primarily right now is with Genesis Fight Team in Arvada. And they also have 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu in there, and then Shark Fitness on the strength and conditioning side.
Yeah, got a little, almost a one-stop shop.
It is, yeah, very much so. So what is it, I mean, paint me a picture kind of what that looks like Monday through Saturday for you, or whatever the days are. I mean, are you, Like, what does pro practice consist of?
So like Mondays and Wednesdays are more striking. Wednesdays kind of blending like your hands with your takedowns and stuff. And then Luke's been teaching on Mondays, like primarily like Muay Thai and kickboxing. Tuesdays is small glove sparring. So we still have like the stand up and we still put shin guards on and everything, but it's more of an emphasis on clinching and groundwork. Thursday is like a really hard wrestling day. Where we still kind of will throw in the small gloves and do some like kind of live rounds at the end, but it's like I said, this one's a lot more like wrestling heavy and we're still working like that ground and pound. And then Friday is we just do sparring in the evenings, pro sparring in the evenings. And
Cool.
Saturday, Mike runs some good classes in the morning, and I know there's comp team for 10th Planet. So there's like Mike does a back class for Shark Fitness, and then they do like some Dutch drills and really light tech rounds, and then Sunday just like an hour of jiu-jitsu. Really, they got a lot of classes on Sundays now. They're doing a women's only at 9 a.m. I think, beginners at 10, and then all levels at 11.
Nice.
So yeah, it's a lot of opportunities to get better.
Yeah. So 11 to 12 Monday through Friday generally is going to be the pro practice, and then in the evening you get like classes in. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually on Fridays there's no pro practice at 11 to 12. It's just sparring at 5:30.
Gotcha.
But yeah, in the evenings is usually I get out of class at like right at 5, so I can rush from it's over by like Highway 36 in Pecos, so I'll
Right.
try to rush all the way to 52nd and Ward, and by the time I get there it's maybe 5:30, so I can maybe just get a quick warm up or whatever, and then I can do either a boxing, kickboxing class, and maybe jiu-jitsu, and then maybe get some strength and conditioning in real quick.
Cool.
Just squeezing what I can out of it, really.
So you end up getting about 5 versions of striking and 5 versions of grappling in each week, so 10 total, 2-a-days.
Yeah, I try to. Yeah, try to as much as I can now, for sure.
It's a well-rounded approach for MMA.
Yeah, I definitely, Jake's he's really he knows his stuff when it comes to the stand-up game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a big problem I've had is not balancing that with enough ground stuff. So I think, and it creates holes. And I think that's definitely been why I've had some of my losses, because I wasn't balancing things right. But now that we have like 10th Planet and we're focusing a lot on our wrestling and stuff too, it's filling in some of those gaps and filling in some of those holes.
And you have a wrestling background, so you're saying like it's the blending it together that was a little more of a challenge?
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. Just getting like those level changes in there and stuff. I really like watching Demetrius Johnson a lot. I think he blends it all really well, and he's like technically sound all over the place. So just trying to kind of get that level of it a little bit. And being ready for whatever.
Yeah, now you mentioned 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu moved into Genesis with Connor Hune there, and he's got MMA experience, I mean, at a high level as well.
Yeah, and Heather Jo Clark, she's been a
Heather
great
Jo
coach
Clark,
too.
yeah.
I've really picked up a lot from them. And yeah, it's kind of cool. I've watched them for years now, and watching Connor when I was in high school and stuff. And
Right.
like, now it's cool getting to work with him. Like, that's just what's cool about the Denver scene altogether, is like there's people I've been watching since I was younger, and now I can see them around and learn from them and everything. So
Absolutely.
But yeah, I definitely think they're like, them having like, they're high level like jiu-jitsu practitioners too, but they have that fight experience and stuff like that too, and I think that's pretty important.
Do they help you with the MMA aspect, or is it?
Yeah. I've picked up a lot from them. And it's kind of cool too. Like they have their like subtle little bit of a differences too. Like, Connor has like a pretty heavy wrestling background too, and then Heather just kind of picked it up with her MMA stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool getting kind of like, I don't know, they just have like a little bit different perspectives on things.
Absolutely.
And so it's nice to have just all those different looks, and then having Jake and Luke and everybody too, who have like a lot heavier striking backgrounds and stuff. But it's cool, like everybody's just willing to learn, and they're all students of the game still, even though they're mostly just coaching and everything.
Yeah.
So.
Who are your primary sparring partners in camp?
Man, see, so Joe Guerrero, he's got a fight coming up.
That's right.
My roommate Zulu and Jane, he's a little bit bigger, but I still get rounds with him. Brandon Gertz is there. Josh Sotomayor, Gemma Breslin, Stacy Vega, Kyle Broadwater. I don't really get rounds with the heavier guys, but there's Josh Copeland, Bubba Grant. It's just whoever's there really. Patrick Carey, he's had some trouble lately, just with some different health issues, but he's been back around lately too, and it's been nice to see him. But primary sparring, just the littler people, I guess.
Sure. And just rotating in and out.
Yeah.
Nice. So you said you spar about twice a week during fight camp?
And then maybe Saturdays I can get some extra tech rounds or whatever.
Okay. And so generally the heaviest you would get is 150. How much are you weighing like in camp, during camp?
Yeah, about 145.
145. So 20 or only 15 pounds over for where you need to be, since this is a catch weight bout at 130.
Yeah.
And then what does the weight cut process look like? Like, is that weight shedding consistently over camp, or is it something where you have to make a concerted effort at the end?
I just try to get to within like 10 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Within 10 pounds of the week of the fight. So I usually eat pretty clean. I mean, I do like crave some junk too sometimes and stuff.
What does your diet look like?
So I've been having like the same thing for breakfast for a while now. I'll do like a couple of scoops of peanut butter, some kind of hot cereal. I've been like on this muesli kick lately because it has like dates and raisins and all kinds of oats and stuff in it. And then I'll mush up a banana with that. Nice. And then I like meal prep all my lunches on Sundays. So I have like a little crock pot heater that I can take to practice, and it warms up my food while I'm at practice.
Cool.
And then
what do you meal prep for lunch?
Oh man, like this week there's like a curry simmer sauce, and I just put cauliflower and green beans and some ground turkey with it.
You're eating well.
Yeah. And then I mean, just kind of I've been trying to get a little creative with it too.
Right.
So just looking up different stuff there's websites all over the place for them.
Yeah.
And even I get some ideas from Laylee, like Mike's fiance. She does the Real Food Denver and does a lot of weight cuts for fighters too. So I pick up some ideas from her and stuff too.
I follow her on Instagram. I see all those pics. They look so tasty.
Oh man, she's like she has a lot of good ideas too.
Yeah.
So just wherever I can, really. And then evenings I've been usually having like eggs and spinach or something with kind of eggs and vegetables in it a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I can
very
snack
lean overall.
Yeah. And then like if I need some extra stuff, I have like snack on fruit or some trail mix. But yeah.
So just doing that naturally, that plus the kind of higher intensity of training during fight camp will get you to about 10 pounds over the week of?
Yeah. Within 10 to 12 is like I want to be like no more than 12 over.
What does that final weight cut process look like for you then, that last 10 pounds?
Lots of hot like Epsom baths. And
you're doing that a week out?
Yeah, I'll usually start a couple of weeks out. Not really to cut the last couple of, like if I'm 2 weeks out, I'll start doing them like, short ones just so I can kind of get my body used to it, to the heat and being in there for a little bit. And then by the time I do get to where I got to cut those last few and it's hot and I'm trying to get that last few off, it doesn't seem as bad, and it kind of helps just relax too.
Yeah.
But that's really what's been working for me. And then usually my last one, I don't know if it really makes a difference, but I'll throw some of that like menthol alcohol in there. I think it helps keep your body from reabsorbing the water.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And then so how much are you over then, like the day before weigh-ins?
Day before, like 3 or 4 maybe.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. So then you're just kind of, are you water loading up to that point?
Yeah, I really try to take in like 2 gallons of water even whenever I'm not in camp.
Nice.
Like, I mean that's the goal. Like once I'm in camp, it's like I'm pretty dead set on getting 2 gallons. But
okay.
Outside of camp, that's just kind of a goal. So if I only get like 1.5 gallons, then that's pretty good. I try to stay like pretty hydrated.
Yeah. Do you measure like your food intake, or do you just do it kind of how you feel?
Yeah, I just kind of go with how my body's feeling.
Yeah.
And then if I need something extra in the evening, I can throw in like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and some bananas or something in there, or a little more trail mix.
Nice.
So yeah.
Very nice. So this fight about 6 weeks out. So again, you're about 25 pounds over right now. Not really worrying about it. Kind of the front end of camp. kind of specify when camp is? Say like, all right, now I got to fight. I'm gonna have this 8-week period of training, or do you tend to take like a year-round approach? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always trying to get in and get better. Really, the end of this last year, 2019, school was getting a little intense, so I kind of took some time. I took a little time away from training so I could focus there, but I was still getting my work in, like in the evenings or whenever I could. So I'm always trying to really be in the gym and get better. But yeah, once like it's 8 weeks out, then that's whenever it's like that's where I'm really a lot of my focus is.
Asking for fewer shifts at work.
Yeah.
Making sure you're not missing practices type
For
thing.
sure,
Cool.
definitely. But yeah, it's just finding balance with all that. And then whatever needs more attention, I'll give a little bit more to.
Yeah.
But yeah, once that 8 weeks is in, definitely on that. But I'm definitely not the same person. Whether I'm in camp or not, like if I don't get like at least a couple of workouts in a day, like I'm just not the same person. Like, and I'm sure a lot of people can identify with that too. Like I don't know. You feel guilty, right?
Yeah. Feel like a slob.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned that you're somewhat familiar with your opponent, Zac Riley. Do you normally like research your opponents, or
not too much? If they have some recent footage, I'll take a look at that just to make sure there's nothing crazy they're gonna whip out of their back pocket. But
sure.
I try not to dwell on that too much. Otherwise, I don't want to like psych myself out or anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think just going in and just letting myself kind of react to what's happening a little bit, and just trusting in my training and believing in myself. Really, I think it's hard to do sometimes. It sounds so simple, but it's hard to do sometimes.
Of course.
But yeah, I think that's reacting to what's going on in front of me rather than overthinking things.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah. Do you do any type of like mental training? Is that something that you've taken a look at?
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to really focus on just like visualizing and focusing on like a lot of breath work and stuff too lately, especially the beginning of the year. I think that was one of my goals, was to make time, at least 10-20 minutes a day, just to kind of like, I guess, meditate, focus on my breath, and think of like visualize the things that I want to achieve and how that would feel.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I've done it. I've gone through phases where I kind of do it, and then it's easy to kind of fall out of that habit. But I think that now I'm really trying to make it a priority, because I think it is pretty important. Yeah.
But it takes work like everything else. I agree that it's important, but it is something that you have to hold yourself accountable to, and I'm sure recurringly.
Yeah, I'm sure you can like. It's easy to like just be like, oh, I can skip this one day, and then it becomes more and more and more and more. Like same thing with anything. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure that extends to everything else you do too. In school, you got to visualize you being successful there, and this end goal. Otherwise, you're never going to do what it takes to get there.
Yeah, and it's easy to get overwhelmed too, and just once you let like a couple of negative thoughts come in, then they just come flooding in, and like it's crazy. It's like just the physical side isn't the only part of it. There's a big mental side to the whole thing of it too.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the harder part too, for sure. At least for me.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I mean, for me too. I'd like to think it's an issue for everybody, but I can't speak for anybody else.
I mean, some people, they just know, like, there's people out there that they cannot see themselves losing at all, which is like cool. Like, but I mean, do you ever, like, whenever you're getting ready for a fight or anything, do you ever like, does it ever flash in your mind, like, of losing, or the worst possible thing happening?
Absolutely. Getting completely embarrassed. For me, and I'm still figuring it out myself, but for me, I feel like it was always, you have to think through it. You can't just stop there. You can't just stop at, oh, what if I got knocked out? You have to think it through. Well, what would knock you out? Would it be this? Okay, well, we know what to do in that situation. If we don't know what to do in that situation, then you should probably go learn it.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, I think the mental aspect is huge. I talk about it with people on the show in the past, as far as, Diego Sanchez always yelling yes while he's walking to the ring, or Donald Cerrone talking about how, he's very nervous before every single fight. He's got a fight coming up. He says still he's very nervous before every single fight. Yeah. GSP wrote in his book about how he stays up at night because he thinks about what his opponent's doing constantly. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a normal thing. It's just how you handle it is a lot of times what separates, people that are succeeding from those that may or may not.
Oh yeah,
And
definitely.
it can be different every fight too. It can be
Yeah.
different day to
Oh,
day.
definitely, for sure. And whatever you have like going on outside of
Oh
that
yeah,
too, like
something people don't ever see.
yeah. And that's another crazy like just dynamic is you got to have kind of all those ducks lined up a little bit, like
Yes,
you know.
at the perfect time. That's very
Mm,
true. That's very
yeah.
true.
Yeah, it gets tough. I
But
mean,
you've done it for a minute. I mean, like we said, you're on your 13th pro fight. You went 8-3 as an amateur, so 11 amateur fights. I mean,
yeah,
how long has that been as far as
man.
years?
I started my very first actual amateur, like sanctioned amateur fight was December 2008, and then I had a couple of smoker fights before then. So maybe like September and July of 2008 or something.
So 11 going on 12 years.
Yeah, close.
That's what's up.
It's been,
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about a little bit. Wow.
We'll dive more into that. But so just to get a complete picture, you've got 10th Planet, you've got Jake working on your striking, you've got Shark Fitness for your strength and fitness. You control your own diet, it sounds like pretty well.
And Luke Cadillo, he helps out a lot too, man.
Yes. What does he help with the striking aspect?
Yeah, and it's good just to have him around a lot too. Like he's got a lot of experience. He was a UFC vet. He's been around. He's, helps corner Justin Gaethje and a lot of those people too. So he's been around the game. So just his like that experience he brings is,
yeah,
really good.
And then you also spend time on the mental aspect, at least trying to get that breathing time in each day.
Yeah.
What about recovery? What does that look like for you?
So have you heard of Rad Roller?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, so like
Actually, Mike Schultz talked about it.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So me and Mike were training people at the same gym. It was a gym up in Thornton, and we did that course together, which was the guy that was running it, Roy. I can't think of his last name, but he was Mike's instructor while he was in his exercise science program at Heritage. So they had some rapport already. But we did the Rad Roller certification program, and I'd used a lot of their stuff, and it helps too, like being in PTA school. Like now I'm kind of like learning like all that's, and the Rad Roller stuff too. Like all this stuff in our body is like all connected too. So, just a lot of those Rad Roller tools help out a lot. And then the Hyper Ice stuff. I really like that company too. They like specialize in like the vibration stuff. So they have
I'm not familiar.
Like a high velocity vibrating foam roller. It's like, I haven't looked up personally. I haven't looked up the research on it, but there is some research, I guess, that like the vibration for like 30 seconds of vibration on a certain part of your body like increases the blood flow and can help with recovery. So I think that's the idea behind theirs. Like, don't quote me on that. Like,
sure.
Like I said, I didn't look up the research myself. But so some of that stuff, and they have a lot of good stuff too.
But you feel like it works for you personally?
Yeah, and I think just that Rad Roller course has been really helpful. Being in PTA school and knowing kind of like, let's just say lower back pain for instance, right? Like that's a pretty common problem for people. It's not always like, and I've been guilty of it too. Like, oh, like you do something to your back and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna like live on that foam roller and just you hit your lower back with the foam roller for, you just pound it out. But really, it's a lot of the time it's the areas above and below it that are like really causing that problem.
My hips are always tight. It makes my lower back tight and hurt.
Yeah, or even like not having a lot of thoracic, like your upper back, not having a lot of mobility and movement there. Like, they talk about people like working at desk jobs or just sitting a lot in general. Like you get those like rounded shoulders, forward head posture. But like I think for fighters it's a lot worse because we're that's extra time we're spending in that position, having our shoulders up and
it's what you want. You want to have your shoulders rounded forward.
Exactly. So like I think we're a lot more at risk for like some of those problems. Sure. And it's if you like it does so much to like the mobility of all your other joints and stuff too. So it all makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I guess having like the Rad Roller stuff and the knowledge from the course, the Rad Roller course, and kind of what I have going on now is it's helped a lot in kind of knowing how I need to, what I kind of need to do, and what might be causing me problems or stuff like that. And too, what's kind of helped is like one of the big things they've been pushing on us in this program, the PTA program I'm in at Pima, is like how to find like really reliable research and stuff too, and like because there's a lot of just like BS out there
Bro
too.
science.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely that too. Um, but so I guess kind of knowing where to look for that and what to look for and
Yeah.
stuff like that
That's
too.
another neat aspect that you're kind of highlighting there, that, these things you do outside of strictly martial arts training can come in and benefit you.
Yeah.
Just this knowledge you're gaining. I mean, obviously in your educational program you're gaining knowledge, but it's directly applicable to being a pro fighter.
Yeah, and it's definitely something like, uh, you know, it's definitely something that I'd like to combine them
Right.
a little bit too. Like I mean, fighting's not always going to be around. You can't fight when you're like 60 unless you're a crazy person. But if I could, I want to stay around, involved in the sport even after I'm long done.
Yeah.
And be able to. I feel like wrestling and martial arts have taught me a lot and helped me grow a lot, and I would like to pay that forward.
Yeah.
As best as I can, and I really enjoy learning about how the body works, and I believe in physical therapy, and
Yeah.
I'd really just like to be able to give that back.
Yeah.
And as a coach, as a PTA, as whatever, somebody that just can give some advice about their experiences and
Absolutely.
whatever
And you'd
I
be a
can.
good person to give it. I mean,
Yeah,
with your experience.
yeah, and like now Genesis is getting a little bit of everything. So we have like the boxing and the wrestling and the jiu-jitsu, and Mike with Shark Fitness, and there's like a lot of the 10th Planet guys. There's 2 or 3 of them that there's one that does that he's an acupuncturist, and then some of them do like what is it? I think it's called muscle activation therapy, and I think one of them's a chiropractor. So
Wow.
it's all kinds of people that are healers there. So it's just
That's
making
right.
it's just another tool to add to it.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, that's quite a team you have around you. I mean, did you always have this team? Like, how did all these pieces come together?
Oh man, we've been in like a rebuilding process for a while now. So Jake took over and we started Genesis Training Center. I want to say, yeah, it was in 2017 maybe. Or
Okay,
was it
a couple years ago.
Yeah. So it's been almost 3 years. I think it'll be 3 years in like November.
And prior to that,
year.
it was Grudge Training Center.
Yeah. So we've been really in a rebuilding process for a while now. Like a lot of Denver Grudge used to be like a big deal around here. They were one of the top teams, and just the nature of the business, people go other places and have to go their separate ways. I don't know specifics about what happened, but
Sure.
Now that Jake's been there, we've been like I said, just rebuilding, and it's been we're like building a new facility now too, that we've been in, and it's been going really great, man. I mean, the construction stuff gets a little hectic at times, like just all the crazy noise and everything, but we're getting those people and getting those bodies in, and we have all the great coaching and everything you really need there.
Yeah. And you spoke to the idea that all these things directly go towards your training. I mean, how do you feel like your style fits in? Like, is this a style that Genesis and Grudge have created for you, or is it something that you've kind of picked up pieces here and there between 10th Planet and Jake's striking and developed your own style?
Yeah, I think obviously I've had the like wrestling background, and definitely once I got to Denver and started working with Jake, like my striking like went to another level, and then having the 10th Planet systems helped out a lot.
Just because it provides structure? Or?
Yeah. Well, just like I said, filling in those gaps and stuff. And then Neil Mellinson was with us for a little while, and he was a really good coach. He was the one that really pushed about being able to blend all that,
right?
Like blend the striking with the wrestling.
I think that's the challenge.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, kind of like something I've mentioned to a lot of people is if like you look at the people that have like had belts, like there's periods where there's like the Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specialists that are having the belts, and they have all of them, and then there's like the boxer wrestlers, because like boxing and wrestling, there's a lot of similarities in the stances and stuff, and then like the Muay Thai Jiu-Jitsu guys, like they can have that like square, tall stance because they're not worried about getting taken down
Right.
because they can defend themselves off their back. And Neil was definitely one of those guys that he pushed more of like the boxing with the wrestling and stuff.
So fed into your style
Yeah,
naturally a little bit
yeah,
more.
yeah. And I still use a lot of his stuff today. Like he gave us some DVDs before he had left.
Oh, neat.
And yeah, I think I still use a lot of like his system a lot too. And being able to add that to the 10th planet, like, I don't know. It's funny too. Like just having the grappling isn't enough. Like you got to have like the top and bottom side of it too. I really prefer like that top heavy game.
Right.
From the wrestling and stuff. But it's good to be able to use that in reverse to get up or things like that too.
Yeah. And you mentioned before the show that you wrestled in college as well for 2 years.
Yeah, Labette Community College. I didn't start, but while I was there, we won 2 national titles as a team, and I made some really good friends there.
And developed some good skills.
Yeah. It was always a really tough room. Like we had a lot of, just state champs and multiple time state champs, and it was every day was a tough day in there for sure.
Wrestling's grind.
Yeah, and we had really good coaches and everything there too.
Did you wrestle prior to that?
In high school, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I wrestled in Oklahoma.
And that's where you're from originally?
Yeah, little farming town, Newkirk, Oklahoma.
Nice.
Yeah, it's right by the Kansas state line. Mark Branch is from there too. He graduated. I had the same wrestling coach in high school as him. In fact, my uncle Rustin wrestled with them whenever they were in high school. They graduated in like '92.
Wow.
So, yeah, man, it's kind of nice to have know that other people have kind of made it out and are doing big things too. Like he's the head coach at Wyoming now too.
Yeah, sometimes it's kind of what you're talking about, the visualization aspect of things. It makes it that much easier to visualize when someone that you've worked with, trained with, lived around is able to be successful at something. It kind of maybe if it didn't click before, it clicks in your head. Oh, I could do that too. Maybe.
Yeah, definitely. Who knows what's capable? Like people are doing crazy stuff all the time.
Absolutely. So I mean, this fight coming up, Colorado Combat Club 5, they're a newer promotion in Colorado, but they're doing cool things. I mean, I just saw that they released, the highlight videos from the last fight, and they look clean, they look good.
I'll have to check those out.
Yeah, the fighters look good in them. So, I mean, it's a good opportunity for you to get back to a win, and against a tough opponent. Zac Riley's a tough opponent. He's down at Pariah MMA in the South Colorado. So I mean, what do you view this fight as for you in your career?
I think just another opportunity to challenge myself against somebody that's is a gamer, and like he's been around for a little bit too. He's fought really tough people. So I think just another really great opportunity to challenge myself. Like I said, you're more or less fighting yourself in there, and so I guess I'm gonna have to focus on fighting him a lot more too. He's not a chump, and I'm really excited about it. Just another good test for it, and especially to get that closer to a winning record again. I think that's a big deal for me, is to get back to at least an even record by the end of the year. So it's another opportunity to achieve those goals.
Well, and you alluded to it right there, but you feel that when you fight, it's more of a challenge of a test of fighting yourself or overcoming whatever barriers there are within yourself more than it is fighting this other individual necessarily.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially with everything I have going on, outside of the gym, just finding the time to, get all those ducks in a row and be ready for whatever he has to bring.
Absolutely. So take me back then. I mean, help me understand kind of how we got to this point in your career. When was the first time you, and I would include wrestling, when was the first time you kind of walked into a gym and recognized that you wanted to do a combat sport or a martial art?
I mean, man, ever since I was a little kid, I could remember being interested in it, being into Van Damme and the Ninja Turtles and all that stuff.
Yeah,
and then, I started wrestling whenever I was in 6th grade.
Okay, so you started middle school?
Yeah, and then by the time I was, I think, sophomore or junior, one of my teammates, his uncle, he was only about a couple of years older than us. He graduated the year before I was a freshman. He started getting into fighting. And we went to go watch him one time, and he did really good. And then he started coming back to town, and we started just kind of playing out around in the wrestling room. We all bought boxing gloves and started getting after each other a little bit. And then one day, my buddy, he was like, his name was Anthony. He's like, we should really like look into getting into this. I was like, man, I don't know if I can like take a knee to the face, like. And then he's like, oh, just whatever, you can do it. Like, so we just kind of started training. There was a little gym right across the state line in Ark City, Kansas, Team KO, where Tyler Stinson started out there. And I started kind of training there. And then I had those smoker
while you were in
fights.
high school still?
No, I was graduated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you started with middle school wrestling. This guy from your hometown ends up going and fighting. So, I mean, back to that visualization, you see, hey, this is a guy that's doing the same training as me, essentially, and he's a fighter. You and your friends talk about it. It starts to become a little bit more real.
Yeah.
And so you graduate. And, I mean, what is the trigger there when you graduate that makes you decide, hey, I'm gonna actually go to this gym, and we're going to figure this stuff out?
I didn't go wrestle in college right out of high school. I was going to take some time off. And my family moved out overseas. My dad's from Jordan, and so he and my mom and my sister moved over there right after I graduated. It was a big family over there. My granddad was getting a little bit older, and so it was just I wasn't done competing, and
Did you think about going
to Jordan?
Yeah.
Yeah, I considered it, but I think I just had other things that I wanted to do here, like that I didn't really think I'd have the opportunity to do there.
Sure.
And I forgot.
So they moved. They decided to move to Jordan. You graduate high school.
Yeah.
And you decided that you didn't want to go to college right away. You were going to wait a little bit.
Yeah. And I took some like credits at Cali Community College, and in the same town that gym was, but I just was still young and like wasn't quite ready. I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I was taking like criminal justice courses, and just pretty much because some other friends were taking them too, and it really just I wasn't going to class and stuff. So it wasn't something I was interested in at the time. I was more interested in competing still. And yeah, so I started there, had a couple of smoker fights, and then my very first amateur fight in 2008, December 6th, I got knocked out in 15 seconds with a knee.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I had a long 4-hour car ride from Hays, Kansas, back to Newkirk, Oklahoma to think about it. And, it's definitely a few times I was like, man, maybe I chose the wrong sport. Like, maybe I should have picked up golf or something like that. But, by the time I got back home, I realized, like, I definitely wasn't done with it. Like, I was still just too interested in the sport. Like, I watched it a lot in high school, too. Like, I'd buy the pay-per-views and have friends come over. And, so I wanted to keep, challenging myself with that.
What was that gym like? I mean, were they, like, kickboxing? Were everything MMA approach?
Yeah, I mean, there was a guy, Kelly Allen. He was like a blue belt, I think. So we got some like ground stuff from him. And mind you, this is like 10 years ago, 11 years ago.
Harder
in
to
the
find
middle of
BJJ black belts back then.
Oklahoma and Kansas.
Sure.
It was still kind of like not quite like the Wild West out there, but it was still growing a lot.
Yeah.
And then there was like some good boxing coaches there, and like Kelly, he was had some experiences in kickboxing too. So it was all like kind of fundamental stuff. And then later after that, my buddy that kind of got me into it with his uncle, into the sport, he was going to go to school at UCO in Edmond, Oklahoma. And that's where his uncle was at. So I decided to move with him there while he was going to school, and I was just going to work and train. And then that's where we started working out with he and his uncle. And that's where I met Tim Elliott there. I worked with him for a little while at a little gym, 805 Fight Club, which was kind of like a step up from Team KO back in the day. And then I was there for about a year, and then I decided to come here to take an EMT class at it used to be Exempla Lutheran. I think it's SCL Lutheran now over in Wheat Ridge. And so I did that, and that's where I first got exposed to grudge. And that was right after.
Were you fighting along this time?
As an amateur, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And then
Strictly MMA?
yeah. That's one thing I really wish I would have done, like more amateur boxing and amateur kickboxing.
Sure. It's
I
not
mean,
something that people really talk about until they're like, after the fact. Or at least in my experience, people didn't tell me go take boxing matches, go take kickboxing matches for the
yeah.
experience. And then, now when I have the ability to reflect on it more and I'm talking to people like yourself, like that seems to be a recurring theme of a lot of these people that are successful. Like, oh, I also had 10 boxing matches. I also
Uh,
had 12 kickboxing matches.
yeah, I mean, it's nice to have that experience for sure.
You at the very least had the wrestling though, so I mean you were used to competing in front of a group of people. You're used to the feelings that you get before competition. This
Yeah.
idea that someone's across from you trying to physically, harm you and
Yeah, and
hold you down and
definitely
impose
dominate
their
you
will upon you.
for sure. Yeah, I think that in the work ethic I got from that like helped
Oh
out a
yeah,
lot too, and
yeah.
definitely the perseverance and some of the discipline and stuff like that.
And that ability to grind through the terribleness. I mean, wrestling
Yeah,
there's not really any days off. They expect you
yeah,
there every day, whether you feel good or not.
definitely.
So you're taking these amateur fights while you're making this journey. You decide to move from Oklahoma to Colorado, and you end up at Grudge.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
did you wind up at Grudge?
I think that was right around the time when the Ultimate Fighter was on,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't remember which season it was, but Trevor was on there,
Oh yeah,
and then I realized
Trevor
that
Whitman.
yeah, Trevor Whitman, and I realized he had Grudge was his gym, and so I started going there just a few days a week. Like I said, I was going to school at that time too, and I was still an amateur, so I wasn't quite there as consistent with it. And then so I was there for about a year, got some training, and then moved back to the Midwest or Southwest Midwest. I don't know, because I really decided I wanted to wrestle in college still,
Okay.
and with keeping like MMA in my mind still, like that was only gonna help.
How old were you at this point?
I was 20, I think.
So a couple years out of high school. How
Yeah.
many amateur fights do you think you had?
I think I had 10 at that time.
Oh wow! So I mean,
or
you
9 or
you
10.
got after it for a couple years.
Yeah, I think I had one more amateur fight whenever I was in college. I think during one of my summer breaks.
Okay.
But yeah, so I just wasn't done wrestling though, and I knew that was a big part of the game, was having
Right.
that being able to like wrestle at a high level is pretty important, whether that's defensively or offensively.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always had teachers and people tell me like I'm too smart not to go to college and too smart not to get a degree, which nowadays, like, sometimes it seems like a scam, like some of the stuff. People spend a lot of money just to go to school for stuff that they might not even really
It's a
use.
check mark.
Which I mean, yeah, it definitely is, like, but I've always been interested in kind of like the medical field and stuff. So
Yeah.
I started with the EMT class here, and then whenever I went to college at Labette, I was studying like prerequisites to get into a nursing school while I was wrestling, and so I was kind of getting a little bit of everything there. It's nice to like be educated, getting educated while I'm like learning all this, stuff about learning to be a better wrestler, and what it takes to have like I said, we won 2 national titles as a team, but how that kind of works,
Mm-hmm.
and what you got to put in for it. And so I got injured while I was there my second year,
What kind of injury?
ACL on
Ooh.
my right knee, and I was really eager to get back from that too, so I would like really rushed it and was probably working out harder than I should have. And that was also my first exposure to PT too. Like, I worked at a gym as just kind of like a front desk guy, but the guy that owned the gym, he was a PTA and like owned his own clinic there too.
Oh, nice.
And he did all my PT for me. It was Mike Geiger from,
Wow.
I think it's, I can't remember what he renamed it, but it was the Performance Enhancement Center then. But now I think it's Peck Performance and Fitness or something like that in Parsons, Kansas.
And so that kind of opened up your eyes towards that being a possible avenue.
Yeah, that definitely kind of like opened my eyes to it a little bit. And so I re-injured myself that summer after my sophomore year, and this time the school's insurance wasn't going to cover it. So I decided like maybe it'd just be best to go back home, get this taken care of, and like I knew I wanted to still keep fighting. So I decided to go back, and I got a job working for a farm equipment construction company back home, and got my knee taken care of, and just stayed busy, as much as I can. that MMA gym that I grew up or that I started out at wasn't around anymore. So just doing whatever I could to stay active and like rehab myself a lot as
Mm-hmm.
much as I could, and just save money so I could eventually move here. And then I moved here in July 2014, and with just full intent on just turning pro
Really?
and giving like this a go, I guess.
So you had one fight while you were in college,
Yeah, it was the summer. This summer I was getting ready to be a sophomore, so after my first year.
and that was your last amateur fight.
Yeah.
What was it at that point that made you feel like, you know what, going pro is the next step here?
Especially after getting injured, like just realizing, with how much time I'd already put into it, like it's just not worth it to do it for nothing for me, I
that's the
guess.
Thailand theory.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well like get some kind of compensation out of it.
Yeah,
Um, it's definitely one of those things. Like I knew there's still not a lot of money in it,
sure.
but it's nice to have like some kind of compensation from it. It's a full time job.
Yeah.
You know, on top of a full time job, and like
Right.
God, I can't imagine if I had a child too. Like I don't know how some
Yeah.
people do that. Like God bless them. God bless those
No, it's a
people.
lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Like you said, I mean, it's a full-time job to at least to train to the level where you feel confident in your abilities, right?
Yeah.
So you saved up your money. I mean, it was a financial goal you had to get to a certain point where you felt comfortable enough to move to Colorado. Did you like line up a job or anything out here?
I actually got like a job for a lawn mowing company like
Nice.
the day after I got here,
Okay.
and I mean the hours for that were pretty crazy. It was especially because I moved here in the summer, so it was working like
Mm.
sunrise to sunset almost. So I wasn't really getting as much training time, and by the time I was kind of like ready just to start training, like the season was ending and there really wasn't any work. So I think around then was I got a job working for like a hardscaping company that would kind of work around my training a little bit more while I was at Grudge. And then I've had a few different gigs since then too. So I was the hardscaping job for a while, and then kind of started looking into school again. Like Arapahoe Community College has a PTA program, and so I started kind of looking into there, and then realized maybe I should make sure that's what I want. So I kind of stepped back from that because I didn't want to use all the time and energy to go into that. But I definitely knew by that time like nursing wasn't really something I was interested in. Like I really thought PT would be something. Like I think nurses, man, they got a really rough job, and like I feel like a lot of nurses, it's tough for them. And then I saw like just having that exposure with Mike Geiger at the PTA that I was working with in
Right.
college. He seemed like he really enjoyed doing what he did and stuff,
Yeah.
and so that's what really got me thinking about that. And then so I had a few more jobs, and then met Mike Schultz with Shark Fitness, and he kind of got me into personal training a little bit, and I started doing that for a few years. And then I think that's what really made me want to start kind of going towards the physical therapy route for
Yeah.
sure, because like it's a step up from there, definitely. And all the while still trying to just train and be the best fighter I can.
Right.
Yeah.
So when did you decide that you would? So you decided to go that you were going to go pro because you want to get paid for this commitment. I mean, right? Be compensated, get a return on investment for the time, sweat, equity that you're putting in.
Yeah.
So you moved back to Colorado. You were able to save up to do that. You get this job, lawn mowing, and eventually hardscaping. When do you take your first pro fight?
I think it was April 2015.
Okay.
I think started the very first promotion I fought for as an amateur, the one that I got knocked out in. I fought for them to make my pro debut.
Nice.
It's Black Gold Promotions. I don't think they really put on any shows, but it was in Hays, Kansas again.
So that was essentially 5 years after you started.
Yeah.
5, almost 6 years of going pro. You get this fight for the same promotion that you made your amateur debut in, and how'd it go?
I knocked the guy out in 9 seconds. So.
Nice, damn.
Yeah, right. The first one I got knocked out in 16, and this one it was 9 seconds. Me
Paying it
knocking the other
back.
guy. Yeah, right. It's kind of funny how it worked out.
So how did I mean, what are you thinking right after that? Like, you made this decision to go pro, and get a big payoff real quick, 9 seconds.
Man, I thought I was gonna get calls left and right, like, oh, come fight for this promotion, come fight for this promotion. And then I realized, like, slowly it was like, I was trying to get all these fights and stuff, and they were just all falling through and falling through and falling through. And like,
Huh.
I think that's where I really realized, like, it's a business too.
Yeah, that's
And
what a lot
so,
of people tend to say. They
yeah,
thought going pro would mean more fight opportunity, but in
oh man,
reality,
it means
it's
a lot less
yeah.
unless you can put butts in the seats.
Hmm.
Um,
And is that something that was ever made explicitly clear, or you just kind of feel that, like the promoter said, "Hey, well, how many, you're asking for a fight," and they're like, "Well, how many tickets would you
yeah,
sell?"
that was kind of, I can't remember. There was a couple of promoters that I just kind of reached out to them on Facebook Messenger or whatever, and yeah, that was usually one of the questions they asked.
Wow.
And then one of them finally made it pretty clear to me, like, listen, like, if you're getting paid such and such amount, and the other guy's getting paid such and such amount, like, in order for me to make a profit, you have to sell so many tickets, like.
Wow.
And so then that kind of hit home with me a little bit,
It's interesting how.
So
I mean, it's cool that he made it that clear, but it's interesting to think about. Like
yeah,
it's the prize fighting business, right?
yeah,
You
and
gotta,
definitely pushing tickets is like a pretty important part of it too.
but
Like,
it takes time away from you. I mean, time
yeah,
and focus away from
yeah,
training.
for sure. I mean, I don't know. If you got like a good group of people around you, they'll help you push tickets too. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've definitely made a lot of good connections since I've been out here. And a lot of the people around me are really supportive. Like, and they've made it pretty easy the past few years to like sell tickets and
Nice.
get these like fights and stuff. But definitely the first couple were pretty tough.
Sure.
Even like going back home, there's a little fight promotion at one of the casinos back home. Like, it was hard to get people to come watch me there, and it was
Mm-hmm.
like not even 5 miles outside of my hometown.
Yeah.
Like, um, so yeah, it's really definitely an important part of it.
So you get your first fight, you knock him out. You're like, oh man, doors. I'm gonna have so many knocks at my door now. It's
Yeah.
gonna be game time. I mean, how long does it take to get your next fight?
I think it was December of that year, December 2015. So it was almost, I can't even do the math, 8 months or something.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I fought for the promotion back home, and that one didn't quite go my way. The guy was pretty heavy. He was like, I want to say like 13 or 14 pounds over. Like, I could have not taken it, which would have been the smart idea. But I just like pounded a couple of Gatorades, and then because you had to be within 10 pounds,
Mm.
and so I still took the fight. And my wrestling kind of got me in trouble that one. He ended up, I finished the first round like taking him down and beating him up, and then the second round he ended up reversing the position and getting on top, and
Huh.
I ended up getting submitted there. And then and then it was, I can't remember when my next one. I think I took a really short notice one after that.
So there's no doubt though. I mean, you're still this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't for another couple of years I decided to go to school again and get into this program. But yeah, I was still like, at this point I was still like really into it, and I knew this is something that I was definitely like was a part of me now, and I was gonna work towards it
Yeah.
no matter what, really. Yeah, so I was just in the gym every day. I can't remember where I was. I think I might have been waiting tables then
Okay.
or something too.
And you put just waiting for the call, trying to get more fights on your resume, build
Yeah.
the resume up.
Oh yeah.
And then what is it that triggers the idea of potentially going back to school again?
Can't remember for sure. It's been a long year, man. Like, especially just with all the school. I've grown a lot this year. I'll tell you, on my 28th birthday 2 years ago, or a year and a half, one of my he's my second cousin on my dad's side. He called me up, and he's telling me, he's like, I just want to call and tell you happy birthday, and just want to tell you, like, if there's anything that you really need to do, like whether that's open a gym or whatever, like you need to get after it and get it done. It's like he and my dad came here when they were in their 20s to go to school, and like they had a plan, and my dad ended up getting sick and he had to drop out of college. And luckily, that's where he and my mom met. So it kind of worked out in my favor a little bit. But, you know, their plans just kind of fell through. And, you know, they could have maybe, like, they expressed some interest when I was younger in opening a restaurant together, but that never happened. And, you know, my uncle or my cousin, he was just telling me, he's like, he's quite a bit older than me. I think he had just turned like 59 or 60 at this time. And he was like, you know, I'm living in California and I'm working a job I really don't care for, and I'm struggling to make rent out here. And he's just like, you know, it could have been a lot different. But he was just he just wanted to, like, I guess, give me that push if there's anything that I needed to get done to do it now and not
That's
wait
cool.
around. And so, like, that next week, I think I went to Pima Medical Institute to start looking into the program. And, you know, made sure I could still get, like, financial aid to pay for it or help me pay for it. And, you know, I'm still qualified for student loans and everything. And at first I didn't get into the program either. Like, they only at the time were taking like 30, I think. And pretty, like, a month after that, I got an email saying that I didn't get in. And then I think it was like early January or late December of 2018, I finally got a call from, like, the advisor lady. And she was like, hey, you know, they decided to accept you in the second round. Like, I guess maybe there were some other people that decided it wasn't for them or whatever. So I got into the program and started January last year, and it's been a crazy ride ever since.
I believe it. Cool,
Yeah.
cool. Do you remember what your goal was when you first started MMA?
You know, just the same stuff you see on TV, really. Like, that's one of the biggest eye-opening things for me is there's, like, so much, you know, they really over-dramatize it a lot, which they have to. I get it. Like,
entertainment.
You know, yeah, it's entertainment for sure. So the same stuff whenever I first started, like, this is other guys, like, be the champ, be the best, you know, and definitely, like, I'm not putting that past myself, but I think those are all kind of like superficial things for me. And while I still do, like, I do try to visualize having a belt around my waist and winning big fights, but it's more just like, I think, like, just challenging myself and, like, seeing how far I can push myself. Not just for, like, you know, it feels good to, like, fight and win, and then you get people patting you on the back, and then, you know, it feels freaking great. And I love it, and I love that feeling when you win, but, like, it's, you know, I just want to, like, be able to contribute other things to the world than just be really good at fighting, you know?
Yeah. So for you, it's more testing yourself. I mean, I think that's something that, like you just said, MMA, it's very built up, dramatized.
Yeah.
It's, you know, WWE-esque with the shit talking.
And I love it too. Like, it's.
But that's not other martial arts. I mean, I would argue, you know, any other martial art is more a test of yourself, right? That's the whole idea that you're doing this martial art, that you're on this journey to understand who you are better, to make yourself a better person, to round out, you know, different attributes that martial arts can bring to the table, like discipline, like respect, and all these other things, and knowing yourself. So, I mean, you're the first person to really bring it up, but it is funny, like, how MMA has become, now as it becomes more mainstream, you know, it's UFC, right? It's not MMA, it's Do You Fight UFC?
Yeah.
And it's that drama unfolds, and that's how these people get paid. But in the reality, you know, they all started out as martial artists, just truly trying to test themselves or see what they're capable of.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Like, it really has changed a lot just in the entertainment side of it. Like, I mean,
it's good for the sport in that it gets more dollars involved.
I mean, I'm a pro wrestling fan too.
Hell yeah.
We had before, you know, we moved locations and changed to Genesis. While we were at Grudge, we had the Rocky Mountain Pro Wrestling Academy was part of the facility too. And so I get to kind of see the ins and outs of that business and stuff too, and that sport. And, you know, it's just, there's a lot of similarities now. And, like, I think a lot of people, especially, like, you know, Connor, Colby Covington, like, a lot of those guys are taking notes, and it's worked out pretty well for them. Yeah. So it's nice to see, like, it kind of, like, the evolution of it like that. But yeah, it's.
You ever think about doing that?
Huh? I mean,
making
a
Colby Covington heel turn.
I mean, I wish I could. Like, I wish I could be a heel. But I don't know. I'm just too shy and stuff. Like this
Sure.
is me stepping out of my comfort
Hey,
zone
I
right
appreciate
now.
it.
Yeah, like
No, but I mean, I think it's cool. I think it's good for people to hear
yeah,
everybody's story and everybody's journey and different perspectives on it. And I
yeah,
think you give a very down to earth, realistic
yeah. I mean,
picture of the sport and the journey. Like
yeah,
this is the journey,
yeah. It's not it's not all Rocky-esque and
glitz and glamour.
yeah, it really isn't. I mean, it's tough. Like
I mean, I don't know what it was like for you, but when I first started, it was fighting in a high school gym. I mean, that was like,
yeah,
it's a promotion, but it's literally the promotion is hosting the fight in a high school gym.
yeah, right. How long have you been fighting now?
About the same time, so I started, wrestled in high school a little bit, and then I went to college, picked up kickboxing,
Nice.
jiu-jitsu, took an MMA fight, 2009,
Yeah.
lost my first fight. Yeah,
Wow,
doing
man.
it since then.
Yeah,
10 years.
it's a journey, huh?
It
Like
is. Yeah, I mean, I don't do MMA anymore now. I just do Muay Thai, and
yeah,
I don't have any like I don't do it professionally or anything, or have any aspirations to do that necessarily. But for me, every time it's the whole journey's been testing myself. Yeah,
yeah,
just step in and see what it's about. Who cares? Or for me, at
yeah,
least, I don't really care what the promotion is. Like
yeah.
I just did the USMTO West,
Was that
Southwest.
the one in Arizona?
Yeah, in
Yeah.
Arizona.
How'd you do there?
I lost, but
Oh
it was a
man,
good
that sucks.
experience. I mean,
Yeah,
it was just a test of where I was and understanding where I was, and I got a better picture of it when I left.
yeah. It keeps you humble too.
Oh
Like
yeah,
no matter like what titles or whatever ranks or whatever you have, like there's somebody always out there that any given day can put it on you. So you like,
always a bigger, badder dude.
yeah, you better be ready. Like there's a quote in Young Guns that always kind of stuck with me. It's like whenever they're getting ready to, there was like a big showdown getting ready to go down, and all the guys in the Billy the Kid's gang wanted to like, skip town and get out of there. He's like, "You guys are gonna fail the test." I'm like, "Test? What test?" He says, "You got to test yourself every day, gentlemen." Like, oh man, I can't remember the quote word for word. It was like, "You got to test yourselves every day because like as soon as you quit testing yourself, you get slow, and that's when they kill you."
That's true. I mean,
Like,
shit. So if I don't have something on the horizon, some kind of like competition or just this idea that I could compete in the next year, I get lazy. Like you
yeah,
have to have something to push you, and that fear sometimes is a good motivator.
yeah. Do you ever like just start kind of like making up things that are going wrong too?
Of
Like
course, you gotta. If you don't have something to overcome,
yeah,
you gotta
like,
put your an obstacle in the way. I think
yeah,
that's, if we're talking about life, micro, macro level stuff. I think that's what a lot of people do to themselves. I think, some people face adversity when they're young and they either overcome it or they don't. And if they do, they, can achieve these things. But some people have life a little bit easier at the beginning, and maybe they don't have so many obstacles to overcome, so they throw them in their way, whether it
yeah,
be drugs or alcohol or what have you.
yeah,
You got to kind of create this thing to overcome, because that is what life is, overcoming consistently.
definitely. Yeah, man.
So,
Plus,
but I mean, your next challenge is this fight coming up. I mean, I think it's interesting to see where you started wrestling, and what's what I think is so cool is about the visualization aspect. I mean, like what makes it real for somebody? What makes any of this real? What makes becoming a Conor McGregor real? Well, you have to be able to visualize it the whole way there, or at least,
yeah,
at some point you have to decide that's the path I'm going down because it's been accomplished before and I know that I can accomplish that.
yeah,
And you saw it from the beginning. You had this guy that wrestled on the same team as you in middle school, high school, that was able to go fight. So you're like, oh, I can do that. That's something that is possible for me. And now you're at this point in your career where you've got other things going on in life, and it's more of a balance. And
yeah,
your journey's taken you up to this point, and where you go from here is up to you again. But you've got this challenge on the horizon at Colorado Combat Club 5 with Zac Riley, and
yeah,
I mean, it's just how you handle all these balances and to use your words, line up your ducks to accomplish your goal, and this goal being, overcoming Zac Riley.
yeah. And I think I got everything really lined up pretty well now. Like, I think I got my schedule figured out, and school's going good so far. I'll be, doing finals the week of the fight. Like,
Jesus.
yeah, yeah. So at least I don't have to cut a whole lot of weight. But
That's what's up.
and then as soon as that fight's done, like no matter what, that next week I'm going to do clinicals again. So
That's what's up. I mean, I think the upside of that, obviously a detractor could say, hey, well, that's keeping you, it's going to distract you. But I think the upside of that is you've got other things going on in your life. It's not
Yeah.
win or lose, make or break it. It's,
Right.
I want to win. I want this test for myself, and, I expect to win. But if it doesn't work out, I'm also doing all these other things,
Yeah.
that are building me up towards being this greater person. And that's what that martial arts journey is truly about,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Just developing these things to make you a better person.
For sure. And I definitely expect to win. I always expect to win. But definitely, I think having all this going on, I've been a student athlete a lot of my life. So I don't have time to like lose focus over something like this. Like, yeah, it's a challenge and people fail at their challenge, like, fail at things all the time. But like, it's something that I have too much else going on that, I got to be quick about just making it a learning experience and looking past it, But I feel really confident about this challenge, and I feel like really confident with this fight with Zac Riley, and I'm really excited for it, man.
I'm excited for you.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
So, how can people follow you online?
See, Instagram is _it_Adwan.
Can I ask you about that actually?
Yeah.
Your nickname is Wait For It. What's that?
You ever saw it? You've seen How I Met Your Mother?
Yes.
Okay, Barney Stinson,
Yeah.
Wait For It. So yeah, whatever. Like the idea was, the announcer does my name and it's Rakan, wait for it, Adwan.
I like it. Cool.
So, yeah, and then I don't really do much Twitter, but it's like Rakan0703. Facebook Rakan Adwan. That's about all I have for like social media wise.
Cool. And then, so if I ask everybody this, what tip would you give a young aspiring martial artist, maybe even like yourself back in the day, if you could give young you advice, what would one tip be?
Man, that's a tough question. I think just do it for you. Don't really have a lot of, don't let all the entertainment side of it get to your head. It definitely helps some people be successful, but I think, just do it for the right reasons, I guess. Do it for yourself, and however that makes you happy. If it makes you happy having that like persona and being a heel or whatever, do that. But I don't know. That's really a tough question, man.
I like that. Do it for yourself. I mean,
yeah,
it's all about you in the end, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a selfish sport.
It is.
I feel like it helps you learn too, and then you can be better for other people.
Right.
So, yeah, I think that's about. That sums it up, maybe.
That's great.
Yeah, this is a really tough question. You caught me off guard.
No, that's good. I think that's a good answer. I think stand by it. Stand strong with it. I like it.
Right on.
Cool. So, yeah, go check them out. February 29th, Colorado Combat Club 5. Buy tickets from them.
Yeah.
And subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Prize Fighting Business, and follow us online.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.